At first, it didn't feel like a scandal. It felt worse than that. It felt like a quiet mistake, the kind that doesn't explode on impact, but slowly rewires everything you thought you knew. Prince Harry wasn't blindsided by shouting headlines or leaked recordings. He was confronted by something far more unsettling: a date, a number, a simple fact that refused to sit where it was supposed to. Once it surfaced, nothing lined up the same way again. For years, Harry defended Meghan's story with absolute certainty. Every question was cruelty, every critic was malicious, every doubt, especially from inside her own family, was dismissed as bitterness. Samantha Markle, in particular, was treated as background noise, a voice too inconvenient to consider, too uncomfortable to acknowledge. But the problem with inconvenient voices is that sometimes they're pointing at something that doesn't go away just because you ignore it. This wasn't gossip, it wasn't theory, it was a timeline problem, and timeline problems don't argue, they just exist. Long before palaces and podcasts, before royal protocols and carefully curated interviews, Samantha Markle was quietly noticing details that didn't align. Not dramatic inconsistencies, subtle ones, the kind only someone who shared a household, birthdays, school years, and family calendars would recognize. A year shifted here, an age adjusted there. Nothing outrageous on its own, but together they formed a pattern that made her uneasy. When Meghan's public biography began circulating, Samantha didn't see a fairy tale rise. She saw a version of events that didn't match the life she remembered. When she spoke up, she wasn't met with curiosity, she was flattened, labeled jealous, bitter, opportunistic. Her credibility wasn't examined, it was erased. But here's the detail no one could erase. Samantha never changed her story, not once. She didn't escalate, she didn't embellish, she repeated the same concern, calmly, consistently, even as the world laughed her out of the conversation. And facts don't fade just because they're inconvenient. The evidence didn't come from a courtroom or a palace archive. It came from somewhere no one thought to check. March 1997, a forgotten teenage magazine, a small lifestyle feature printed long before Meghan Markle mattered to anyone powerful. Inside it, a simple line, a name, an age. Meghan Markle listed as 21 years old, not implied, not suggested, printed. That detail mattered because it existed before image control, before lawyers, before royal strategy. If Meghan were born in 1981, as officially stated, she would have been 15 at the time, maybe 16 at most. But the magazine didn't list a teenager, it listed an adult. A 6-year gap, too specific to dismiss, too early to manipulate. The page didn't accuse anyone, it didn't speculate, it simply existed. And by existing, it cracked the narrative open. The story might have stayed theoretical if not for one crucial misstep. Prince Harry talked too much. In Spare, Harry didn't just recount events, he painted scenes. Archie's birth, in particular, was described as serene and almost cinematic. Soft lighting, candles, music. 2 epidurals, a calm delivery, and then, almost immediately, Meghan walking out of the hospital refreshed and ready. On the surface, it sounded beautiful, but biology doesn't care about beautiful storytelling. Anyone familiar with childbirth knows one unmovable reality. After an epidural, you cannot simply stand up and leave. Mobility returns slowly. Blood pressure must stabilize. Observation isn't optional, it's mandatory. Yet Harry's timeline suggested labor, 2 epidurals, delivery, recovery, and discharge all happened within roughly 2 hours. Not unlikely, not rare, impossible. That's where the story stopped being emotional and became medical. Pregnancy isn't judged by appearances, it's judged by risk. And risk changes dramatically with age. Over 35 is classified as advanced maternal age. Over 40 is high risk. Monitoring increases, tests multiply, hospital stays lengthen, discharge timelines stretch cautiously, not optimistically.
If Meghan were in her late 30s, the birth would still require oversight. If she were in her early 40s, immediate discharge would be unthinkable. Suddenly, the secrecy made sense. The private hospital, the undisclosed medical team, the carefully controlled statements. This wasn't about privacy, it was about control. Because once medical facts enter the conversation, narratives lose flexibility. Hollywood taught Meghan early that age isn't just a number, it's currency. Roles disappear. Casting doors close. Shaving years off a resume isn't vanity, it's survival. Then came royalty, where age isn't about careers, it's about optics, fertility, heirs, timelines. A younger bride sells romance, an older one introduces urgency, scrutiny, pressure. Perfection became non-negotiable. Every appearance had to align. Every milestone had to cooperate, because once one detail slips, the rest unraveled. That's why questions were deflected instead of answered, why timelines were sealed tight, why the story had to remain flawless. And then Thomas Markle spoke. Not angrily, not theatrically, calmly, factually. He didn't speculate, he confirmed. Samantha had never lied to him, not once. Every concern she raised checked out against records he had kept long before fame made them dangerous. School years, documents, dates, lived reality. This wasn't sibling rivalry, it was correction. And corrections are lethal to carefully sold truths. That's when the story stopped being about Meghan and became about Harry. Because Harry didn't just believe the narrative, he defended it. He burned bridges for it. Family, country, duty. He sacrificed everything because he believed he was protecting truth. But what happens when you realize the truth you protected was already edited? That realization doesn't arrive with rage. It arrives with silence. Harry now stands inside a narrative he helped amplify, wondering which parts were real and which parts were rehearsed. His memoir, his interviews, his sacrifices, all built on trust. And trust doesn't shatter loudly. It settles slowly, quietly, permanently. Samantha Markle isn't celebrating, Thomas Markle isn't attacking, and the past isn't arguing. It's just sitting there, printed, documented, unchanged, because the most devastating truths don't shout, they wait. And once they're seen, they don't need defending. They ask one final question. If something as basic as age had to be rewritten, what else was carefully edited before the world ever noticed?